Hi, I'm Tara Bench, and I am so thrilled to be here with Melissa's Cookbook Author Events. And I have a new cookbook, Delicious Gatherings, that I will be cooking out of today, and we're going to make two dishes. I am here in New York City where I live, and so happy that I can be virtual with you. So please ask any questions along the way, and I will answer them. Comment below. And also connect with me on social media. I'm at Tara Teaspoon. My new cookbook is my second book. My first one was Live Life Deliciously, and this one is Delicious Gatherings. Live Life Deliciously was so many of my favorite recipes and a wonderful collection of favorites and classics. And my second cookbook is a little bit more about entertaining and bringing people together. And I was able to be a little bit more creative. I have such a passion for bringing people together around food, whether it's cooking together or eating together. And so Delicious Gatherings does all that. And it has recipes that you can cook together as a family, friends, and bring people together around the holidays or a weeknight dinner. So today I will be sharing a couple of recipes. One is a loaded guacamole dip, and you're going to love it. It's perfect for game days, parties on the weekends. And my family, we often serve it just at a family gathering, a reunion, a party. So it's a great dip. You're going to love it. It's my take on the classic 7-layer dip. The next recipe I'll be showing you is a take on Waldorf salad. So it's sort of a modernized, delicious, sophisticated Waldorf salad with radicchio and some beautiful Melissa's produce, grapes and herbs, things like that, that really elevate that salad. So it's great for a Sunday dinner or a holiday gathering. But I hope you'll join me, and let's get cooking. All right, first up is my loaded guacamole. This is one of my favorite recipes in this new book. And as you can see, the presentation is really fun. That is the star of the show, is how you put it on the platter. So it's my take on a 7-layer dip, and you've all had that delicious Mexican 7-layer dip at a party. This one starts with guacamole, and we layer all the toppings on top of it in circles so it looks really beautiful. So let's get started with some avocados and make some guacamole. And Melissa's Produce has provided these gorgeous avocados. So I'm going to cut into them and get that into my bowl. Typically start the chopping in the skin with a light marking of my knife, and then I will pull that out, put it in my bowl. You can see how that's perfectly soft, and it's going to mash really, really well. I'll finish these avocados. You want about 5 avocados in your guacamole because we're making enough for a party, and the guacamole is the base of this dip. So we want a fair amount of guacamole, so 5 avocados is going to be perfect. And we'll get that into the bowl. I'm going to add the salsa. So I just buy jarred tomatillo salsa. It's just a green salsa, and it already has that nice concentrated flavor in it. So I'll add about half a cup. And then we always want to season with salt. And I'm checking my recipe here so we get it all the right amount. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of kosher salt. I like using kosher salt. It's a little bit more mild than table salt. You can also use sea salt if you'd like that. That is a great option. And then we'll do 2 tablespoons of fresh lime juice. So I have some Melissa's organic limes here, and just a little lemon squeezer. I love kitchen tools that help me do the job, and this one's one of my favorite. We will just add one of these juicy limes. I think it might only take 1. This is really juicy and delicious. Let's add a half another one just for good measure. You can see I'm not measuring those 2 tablespoons, but we're getting right around that. I love fresh lime in avocados because it not only preserves the color and allows them to stay nice and bright and green without oxidizing and turning brown. But it adds, it's like salt and lime juice bring out the flavor of all these other ingredients. So let me mix this up and then we'll chop some cilantro. I use it's a pie blender, it's a pastry blender. I love using that for avocados. You can use a fork or another kind of potato masher if you'd like. But I just give this a little mash. And I like to mash it before I put my cilantro in so that I'm not breaking and bruising the cilantro. Then I can just stir it in once this avocado is a little bit mashed together. So next, let's chop our cilantro. I have some fresh washed cilantro here. So the stems of cilantro are quite flavorful and they're actually pretty tender. So I usually keep the stems in, other than these dark, like heavier woody stems. So cilantro stems, I'm just going to keep on with those tender leaves and chop this somewhat finely, but not too finely, so that we can see some pretty flecks. And those tender stems are chopped. And this will really brighten that guacamole. And we're of course going to add some more cilantro to the top in our herb mixture, but this will brighten the avocado mixture. So I'm going to do about 1/3 cup right in here. And it doesn't need to be tightly packed, just kind of a loose pack, and we'll put that in our guacamole. Now let's give that a little stir. And the guacamole's done. We can set this aside while we make the other layers. So any store-bought taco seasoning will do. And it's 3 tablespoons in this 1 cup and a quarter. And it just packs the flavor in there with that familiar, yummy taco seasoning flavor. So I'll add these 3 tablespoons of taco seasoning in, and then give this a little mix. And this can be set aside while you prepare all of your other ingredients. All right, next up, we're going to make a green topping with lots of cilantro, some jalapeno, and some scallions. So I love this because it's bright and fresh. And while we had our cilantro in the guacamole, this is a beautiful green layer that will go on the dip and make it look really beautiful as well. So I'm just going to take the little root end off. And just to start, I'm running my knife down that beautiful white center there so that it's smaller. And then I'll just start to finely chop these scallions. Let's see if those 2 scallions are 1/3 cup. I think they probably are. As you can see, do you love knife skills? I love knife skills. I turned my knife over when I was scraping the food off my board, so I wasn't ruining that nice sharp edge of my knife. Did you know that? It's a little tip that I love to share with people. I'm always figuring out ways that I can protect the sharp edge of my knife, because that's your tool. And a sharp knife makes cooking so much more fun. All right, my eyes are watering and we've got our 1/3 cup. Now jalapenos, as you know, that jalapeno pepper oil gets on your fingers. And so you want to wash your hand really well after cutting this jalapeno. All right, you want to know my pepper cutting tip? With my sharp knife, I have the pieces of pepper skin side down. That's so your blade doesn't slip off the skin when you cut. And I'm just going to start to mince this. And the knife goes through really well. And I'm going to make little strips and then cut that across to make what we call in the chef's world brunoise, which is just a nice, really fine chop. So this is 3/4 cup of fresh chopped cilantro. And remember, you can add those tender stems, my scallions, and let's do 2 tablespoons of, I kind of do a heaping tablespoon of those jalapenos. Oh, this is going to be so delicious. So let's stir that up. And this mixture again can be set aside. What I love about this dip is you can prepare all of these elements ahead and then assemble it when you're ready to serve it and eat it. Next ring we're going to do is our tomato ring. And I use any kind of tomato. These beautiful on the vine tomatoes from Melissa's are great. And you can use Roma tomatoes, any kind of tomato you like. I love these, they're very juicy, and I'm going to show you how to get the seeds out. So I just cut that little stem out and we'll pull it out with our fingers. You can have a discard bowl right here. But I've just run my finger through those seeds and those cavities of the tomato to remove some of that excess juice. We want the juicy tomato, but we don't want all of the watery seeds. So we'll get some of that out. You want about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 cups of chopped tomatoes. One of the other layers is crumbled cotija cheese. And you can buy this crumbled, but I like crumbling my own. And you just use your fingers. It's a beautiful sort of salty cheese, but it just adds that beautiful color to our dip and a little bit more flavor. So this we need about 1 cup to 1 1/4 cups, depending on the size of your platter. Next up, we'll do some roasted corn. It is so fun to make and eat this roasted corn on the dip. Okay, for my roasted corn, I grilled it inside. You can also heat your outdoor grill and grill fresh cobs of corn on the grill. And I heated this pan really hot and then put my corn lined up with the grates and then turned it every once in a while, and it created this beautiful charred corn. And the smell is so nice. And it adds sort of a beautiful look to the dip. You don't have to char or roast your corn. I think it's a fun variation to this dish, but you could certainly just use fresh corn off the cob. If you like it raw, go ahead and use it raw, or a nice cooked cob of corn. And as you can see, this is another little tip for cutting corn. This is round, so I just kind of hold it stiff, and as I create those flat sides, I can roll my corn, and it's safer to cut that way. So I did a couple of cobs. You may only need 1 cob of corn depending on how big it is, but see how I can now turn it onto that flat side and cut the edge off again. This is where a nice sharp knife comes in handy. All right, we'll get this corn in our bowl. One of the other beautiful ingredients is black beans, and I just use already cooked canned black beans. You can cook your own if you do big pots of beans. It's a little less than 1 cup. It's half a can of black beans, and I have rinsed and drained these black beans, and so they're ready to go, and we'll just use those on the dip. I love an oval platter for this dip, and as you can see, we're going to create rings on the top of the guacamole and the taco crema. So let's get started. Now the guacamole, you'll want to make about, I don't know, I'd say maybe 1/4 inch thick, and I just gently spread it around my platter. Now our crema has been sitting in the fridge, sort of allowing those flavors to meld in the sour cream, and you can see what a beautiful color it is. Now I'm just going to start by giving that guacamole a little bit of a border. I want to see all of the layers on this dip. I think that's kind of fun because you know what you're getting as you dip your chip into it. Next up is the tomatoes. Now if you'd like, one of the tips on this dip is, if you're kind of new at creating those rings, start in the middle instead of the outside so that you know you have enough room. I'm going to kind of visualize how thick those rings need to be as I put them on. And again, I just want to showcase a little bit of that crema around the edge. So I'll start my tomatoes, I'll do a ring, and then I'll start to make that ring a little bit more plentiful as I get my shape. The next layer is cotija cheese. Here's my little hand wiper. And this is a fun, bright, colorful layer. I wouldn't want to skip it. You certainly could skip any of these 7 layers, but why do that when they look so good together? Now the crumbled cheese is a little bit easier than shredded cheese to place on this dip, but if you're using shredded cheese, you can always just spread it around the edge and cover it with the next layers. This dip is quite forgiving, even though it looks a little fancy and it looks like, oh, can I do that? It really comes together quite easily. And now that you've seen it done, I think you'll be an expert. Okay, next ingredient is our green mixture. Now remember, we have cilantro and green onions and jalapeno in here. And so if we just get a little spoonful, then we'll put it right next to that cotija cheese. Okay, let's add our black beans. These go in, and then our corn goes in, and we're about ready to taste this delicious dish. So the black beans, again, you don't need too many. I know on a traditional 7-layer dip, the base is a refried bean dip, but I love that this is a creamy, buttery guacamole on the bottom. It's kind of delicious, and you always want more guacamole, right? I love that the charred edges of this corn play off the color of the black beans right in the center, but it's just that bright pop of color. Look how beautiful. This dip came together pretty easily, just a little bit of chopping and prep, and you were able to create this gorgeous centerpiece dip. And it tastes a little like your favorite 7-layer dip, but loaded guacamole is going to be your new favorite. So I have a few tips for you. It's so gorgeous, and you don't want your guests coming over and double dipping. So I love to teach people how to eat this dip at a party. And one thing you can also do is sort of garnish the edges with some chips so that people know it's a dip for these delicious tortilla chips. I like going from the outside to the middle, and then you have this beautiful dip for people to taste. I hope you enjoyed this. The next recipe we're going to do is an update on Waldorf salad, but I'm going to dig into this first and then we'll be back. Okay, the next recipe that I want to cook with you from Delicious Gatherings is my updated Waldorf salad. And I add radicchio and a lovely buttermilk vinaigrette dressing. And it's just an elevated classic. So I love that this classic salad heralds from my home, New York City. It originated at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. The chef created a salad and named it the Waldorf salad. So the resemblance of that salad and my salad is really the combination of celery and apples and grapes. Traditionally, it had a mayo dressing, but this one will have a nice yogurt, buttermilk, herby dressing, and I think you're going to love it. We start with candying some pecans, and I add a little heat to my maple candied pecans. So let me show you how to do that. Now that we've cooked and cooled those nuts, I'm going to chop them. So they're kind of crunchy and sticky and delicious, and I'm just going to roughly chop those nuts so that they can get sprinkled on the salad. Now you can see I had a nice big cutting board to get those nuts chopped. We'll just set them aside and clean up the board and start on our other prep. We're going to make the dressing next, and it's a lovely mixture of buttermilk and yogurt and herbs. This dressing is really simple to make. I'm going to start with my chives and parsley. So it's about a tablespoon of fresh chives. And if you can't find fresh chives readily any time of year in your area, you can certainly use scallions. But I love the mild taste of chives. Plus, I love the way it looks in this recipe. They're so tiny and beautiful, and I just give them a little slice and chop. And I'll show you a little trick. If you've got kitchen shears in your kitchen, this is a great way to cut chives. You simply snip those chives into the small pieces instead of using a knife. So we'll get these chopped and then do some parsley. Some people find radicchio a little strong and bitter, so I've given an option in the cookbook to use a butter lettuce or a different lettuce in place of the radicchio if you'd like to. However, I love the sophisticated addition that this beautiful radicchio gives. And these herbs just add that bright, flavorful note to the dressing. And the dressing is a tangy, sort of savory, lemony dressing. Once you have your herbs chopped, then mix up your dressing. And we'll just put it in our bowl right here. I add about 1/2 cup of buttermilk. And then we'll do 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt. Now with Greek yogurt, I love a full fat Greek yogurt. You can absolutely use a lower fat. This is 5%. And I often buy it up to 10% milk fat with my plain Greek yogurt. I think it adds such a nice richness to recipes. But low fat or 0% Greek yogurt works really well in this recipe. That way you can make a bit of a healthy salad if you'd like to, and it's not such a rich dressing. Let's get this mixed up a little bit. Then we'll add some lemon juice, and I'm using Melissa's organic lemons today. They're the perfect size. And I'm just going to use one of my favorite tools, a citrus juicer. It catches all the seeds. We just need about a tablespoon of that lemon juice, which right there is pretty perfect. We'll whisk that together. And then this is simply seasoned with a little kosher salt and pepper. So I'll measure that up and get the right amount in. 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. I use kosher salt because it's a little bit mild in flavor. You can use sea salt, and if you use table salt, feel free to use just a little bit less or season it to taste. And then it's just a pinch of pepper, and I have a freshly ground black pepper here. Then I don't even add any sweetener to this dressing because the fruit in the salad is so delicious and sweet. So let's put in our tablespoon of chopped chives. And it's just about everything I chopped. I love this. And then make sure we have that tablespoon of parsley. We'll whisk this in, and then I'm going to set it aside in the fridge, and we'll make our salad. This can be made up to a day or 2 in advance. This dressing holds up really well in the fridge. This is a great recipe to serve Sunday dinner with a roast, or a holiday meal, even Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. And these ingredients are so great in the fall for sure. I'm going to get the salad components prepped, and I use a slicer. You can absolutely use your hand and a knife, but I love getting my fruits and veggies really nice and thin. And I wear a protective glove so that I don't have to worry about using a guard or cutting my fingers. So I'm just creating these beautiful thin slices of apple, and You can use any variety of apple. So you can do 1.5, you can do half an apple if you're cutting this recipe in half. One of the things that I definitely encourage in my book, Delicious Gatherings, is make the recipes to suit your crowd. If you need half a recipe, they're pretty easily halfable, all of the ingredients in the recipes. And if you need to double it for a crowd, absolutely do it. So that slicer came in really handy. I'm going to put these apples in my bowl. And we don't need to toss them all together yet. We'll just kind of layer them right here. And then I'll move on to my celery while I still have my protective glove on. I've washed this and trimmed it, and I'm just going to slice this. You can absolutely, let me show you, cut it with a knife, and I love to just cut those ribs of celery on the bias and create nice, thin, pretty slices, as you can see there. But the slicer makes easy work of it. The nice thing with these gloves is you can just wash them. I just put soapy water on this and wash it like I'm washing my hands in the sink. You can also throw it in the washing machine with your kitchen towels in a load, but I like just doing it in the sink. And then I just let it air dry. But I'll set this aside and do that later. All right, my celery is ready to go in the bowl as well. And this salad is so nice because I feel like you can compose it on a platter and it looks so beautiful, or you can toss it together in a serving bowl. So whether you're trying to make it sort of a centerpiece salad to a nice buffet for a fancy party, or serving it to your family on a weeknight or a weekend, it's easy to put together however you would like to style it. All right, the next thing that goes into this salad is some grapes. I love using red grapes. They're really nice and sweet and floral. And I've washed these Melissa's grapes, and then I'm just going to pull them off the stem and slice them in half. I want about 1.5 cups of sliced grapes. All right, these grapes are just about done, and I'm going to add these right to my salad bowl as well. Let's see if we're about at the measurement that we need. I think we are, about 1.5 cups. And while I give you exact measurements for the exact amount of salad, I'm just going to make these heaping. It's okay to have a little bit more or a little bit less. For my green in the salad, I'm not even going to add a green. I'm going to add some beautiful radicchio, which is this lovely dark red color, sort of eggplanty. And I have 2 varieties sent by Melissa's. They have very similar flavor, and they're kind of rich and bitter if you taste that leaf. And so with the tangy vinaigrette dressing and the sweet fruit, that's what makes this a really nice sophisticated salad. So with either head of radicchio, I like to cut that stem off and then just break your leaves off. This is an outside leaf, so it's a little softer. I'm going to get rid of that and go for the center leaves that are so beautiful and crunchy. And I can already taste this elongated radicchio is much more bitter than the smaller round. At the store, you may even find red endive. That is a great addition to this salad or substitute for radicchio. Now you can break this up into pieces or chop it into nice, beautiful chunks and then break it into your salad bowl. I'll show you how pretty it looks with all of the other ingredients. Let's get a few of these longer leaves in our salad. And you know what will be fun is just to thinly slice those ends and have some different shapes for this lettuce. All right, I call for a small head of radicchio, and both of these are quite large. So I've got about 3 to 4 cups of leaves here. I think that's going to be enough for our salad. So I'm going to add it to the bowl, and you can see how beautiful this salad is already coming together. And like I said, it might be fun to compose this salad on a platter if you don't want to serve it in a bowl. But I'm making it very much like I did in the book, where it will sit in this bowl until I'm ready to toss it and serve it. So the last bit are the nuts. So I'm going to add these candied nuts, and once I toss the salad with the dressing, the outside sweetness of the nuts sort of mixes with everything, and it just makes it delicious. And then if you have extra herbs, after you dress it, before you dress it, I like to garnish with some of those extra chopped herbs. So I had a little parsley left over, so I'm just going to add that to the top, and it creates this bright green addition. So let's grab our dressing and we'll dress this and taste it. I think you're gonna love it. All right, this salad is so gorgeous with all the fall colors, and I'm just going to serve some of everything into my bowl and toss it in there. I can smell those nuts, and I love the heat on the nuts and the sweetness. It's so good. I know you're going to love it. And the sweet and bitter and juicy and crunchy. Thank you to Melissa's for having me. And if you want to find more, please get Delicious Gatherings anywhere online, and find me on Instagram at Tara Teaspoon and online at tarateaspoon.com. Thanks, Melissa's, and thanks to everybody for joining me. Enjoy the recipes.